Hey, what's up, everybody? We did it. We made it through preseason week one. I don't even know who won the game. Does anybody know who won? 49ers or the Chiefs? I mean, I swear there was a point of today where I forgot who had won the game because it's so trivial. I think the Chiefs won, though. 19-16 was the final, but we're looking at different stuff, right? We're looking at who is going to make that 49ers 53-man roster. We're looking at Trey Lance. We saw Jimmy Garoppolo for 3 completions, 4 if you count the one that was nullified by penalty. But we had a lot of fun back out at Levi's Stadium on Saturday night. So it's a perfect time to talk some more 49ers. I'm going to tweet this out so that the simulcast is out there. Reviewing Trey Lance. You guys can see me right now in action on Twitter. And the 49ers' first preseason game. Tweet. There we go. All right. We're at Lombardi himself on Twitter, so make sure you follow along there. Tweet your questions here. I'm sure there's plenty to talk about after that barn burner of a preseason game yesterday. But seriously, I mean, there was a lot of good stuff to check out. I think the 49ers sat something like 22 players. I think it was over 20 players. So, I mean, first team defense and starting defense were definitely not synonymous last night. It was essentially the second team defense. You saw a tiny bit of Dre Greenlaw, I think a tiny bit of Tavon Wilson. But for the most part, this was the 49ers backup defense starting the game against the Chiefs. You had to be happy with how they shut down Patrick Mahomes in his only series. That was cool. Jonas Griffith there with a near interception at the end of that one. And then offensively, it was definitely a neutered 49ers offense. You don't have Trent Williams. You don't have Alex Mack. No Raheem Mostert. You had some of the wideouts, but no George Kittle. And obviously Jimmy Garoppolo there for only a series at the start, which led the way to Trey Lance. And I know that most people are tuning in right now to talk about Trey Lance. So we'll start with that. I may start chopping these videos up too to post specific ones to the YouTube channel. So that way you don't have to scrub through a whole hour of me talking 49ers just to get to the topic that you want to hear about. But I mean, Trey was the talk of the town yesterday. He's still the talk of the town right now. And I think the way that I describe the 49ers preseason opener is just a perfect extension of training camp. I mean, during camp, we had seen just the wow flashes from Trey Lance. And the biggest wow flashes to me were when he was rolling to the naked side. That's the side opposite of his throwing motion. So the side where he had to plant his feet, whip around, turn the hips, and uncork a bullet downfield. And he, was throwing laser beams short to Brandon Ayuk out of that kind of motion. And he was also throwing them deep to other receivers at practice out of that motion. And we saw one of the deep ones from Trey Lance to Trent Sherfield for an 80-yard touchdown. That was the first play of Trey Lance's second possession. It was a wow throw. I thought that it was fitting that Patrick Mahomes was actually watching that in person from the Chiefs sideline, because there are only a few players in the league that can make that throw with that kind of velocity. And Patrick Mahomes is one of them. Trey Lance is obviously one of them. And, maybe a couple more. Josh Allen might be able to. But just as far as the mobility, the fluidity from the play action set to be able to deliver that throw, on a seed to Trent Sherfield, I thought was eye-opening. I thought that it was really cool. From where I was sitting up in the press box, the throw was coming, in the direction toward me, obviously not that high because the press box is up above the upper deck, but in the direction of where we were sitting along press row. So you really saw the trajectory on the field. And to me, the cool part was that throw had so much power and velocity on it that the Chiefs secondary, they looked like they were in quicksand. Now, part of the reason they looked like they were in quicksand is that Trent Sherfield ran one hell of a route. And I thought that was really cool afterward, where Trey Lance talked about how good of a route, how good of an angle that Trent Sherfield took, because he saw where the defensive backs were, he saw where the safety was, and he knew how to best leverage his speed to get into open pastures, and Trey Lance was able to nail that ball in there to find him. It was a similar play to what the 49ers ran in 2019, if you remember, during the regular season when they blew out the Green Bay Packers. On that one, George Kittle was a little bit more open than Trent Sherfield, but Jimmy Garoppolo heaved one to Kittle, and he scored a big touchdown to put the 49ers up like 30-8. I think that was the final score of that game. So they got that win. Kyle Shanahan, seems to make his money off of the play action, right? We talk about the 49ers pass protection issues. Well, if they ever have protection issues, then they can nullify a lot of them with the play action pass because it gets the defense to bite run. It, takes some steam out of those pass rushers' ears, and it allows the 49ers receivers to get to work against an uncertain secondary. So when the 49ers establish the run game, or at least the threat of the run game, when they have a quarterback who can execute the proper, timing and footwork of the play action, and obviously Jimmy Garoppolo has been able to do that for them, and obviously Trey Lance can do that, then I think that good things happen, because that is when Kyle Shanahan's offensive vision truly materializes. So to me, it was such a big throw from Trey Lance because it combined the Shanahan play action with the whole air it out concept, and the fact that, Trey Lance has those prodigious physical gifts to make a throw like that. Now, I mean, you compare it to the Garoppolo throw against Green Bay, it was a similar play to George Kittle. I think Garoppolo's arm is undervalued. I do think he could make big time downfield throws like that, but not at the velocity that we saw from Trey Lance yesterday. That's what makes Trey Lance's physical arm talent special. That's what, makes the 49ers so excited that they did invest so much in Trey Lance to be able to have this guy for 10 or 15 years, because you could start doing next level stuff with that kind of arm talent. When you could throw, it was 49 yards in the air, which I thought was fitting. You could throw 49 yards in the air at 90 mile an hour fastball velocity. I'm not sure if it was 90, but that's a baseball analogy. All of a sudden, defenders start looking like they're in quicksand more often than not. Receivers are a little bit more open than they usually are. And I mean, you saw the velocity at other points of Trey Lance's start. I mean, it wasn't a start. It was Jimmy Garoppolo's start. But other points of Trey Lance's action yesterday, you saw him roll out. I think it was on his first snap, clean pocket, and just threw a bullet to Brandon Ayuk, who couldn't hang on to it. It seems that the 49ers receivers are going to have to get used to the velocity that Trey Lance is putting on some of these throws, because you saw Brandon Ayuk drop, you saw a River Craycraft drop, you saw Richie James drop, which I think is becoming an issue for the 49ers. I mean, we're seeing a lot of Richie James drops in practice. I'm going to share my roster here in a second. And you have to hold on to the ball. I mean, Kyle Shanahan goes crazy when running backs fumble, and he goes crazy when receivers drop the ball too much. Richie James is currently dropping the ball too much. But the Craycraft drop, that was a fascinating play to me, because it was obviously not one that's going to hit the highlight reels. It wasn't a completion. Trey Lance was under duress. The way, you can go to my Twitter, I posted a video of it, I think late last night when I was just firing off some tweets about the game. The way that ball just jumped out of Trey's hand was something that to me seemed to defy physics. He was getting crunched. He was getting hit from one side and also hit from the other side. So it's kind of like a sandwich in that situation. And he had really no mobility, no ability to get the wind up into the throw. He just had to get rid of it because that pocket and that window was collapsing on him. And even though Trey was getting crunched, and even though he only barely flipped his arm, somehow that ball just shot out of there, like it shot out of a cannon, and it hit River Craycraft in the chest near the sidelines. And I thought that, more than anything, was an indicator of the type of physical talent that the 49ers are dealing with Trey Lance. Somehow, some way, he was able to defy physics and kind of just flick his wrist while getting hit and get a ball out there so quickly. So, I mean, that was the good with Trey Lance, right? And that's what we had seen during training camp. We had seen this prodigious physical talent on display on an NFL practice field. Yesterday, we saw it on an NFL game field. That is a big deal. That's a huge step for Trey Lance. It's a huge step for Kyle Shanahan as far as his confidence in Trey Lance. But it, by no means signifies that the work is done. And this is where we need to just take a deep breath and back up and not be prisoners of the moment. Trey Lance finished that game 5 of 14. Yes, there were 3 drops, so fine, 8 of 14, just over 50%, if you will. But there were 2 near interceptions. There were 4 sacks. Only one of the sacks, I think, was Trey's fault. Talked to Kyle Shanahan about that today. So, yes, by no means of by no means was this a perfect offensive line performance. I thought that the second team offensive line was particularly leaky over right guard. That obviously is where Aaron Banks was for much of Trey Lance's tenure in the game. And we're going to get to that a little bit later because I think that is, a glaring issue the 49ers are going to have to solve for both of their quarterbacks that are going to play this year. But, despite all the extenuating factors, there was still a lot for Trey Lance to work on leaving that game. There's still a very decided level of rawness when it comes to situational football. Two plays that I obviously love from Trey Lance that pop out to everybody were the 80-yard touchdown to Trent Sherfield, executed perfectly. The arm talent was on full display. What's not to like on that play, right? And then backed up at their own goal line, the 49ers from their 1-yard line run play action, and Trey Lance is able to hit Charlie Werner. Again, great footwork with the pressure on in his own end zone, takes his eyes obviously off the field for the play action fake, reacquires Charlie Werner downfield, throws a strike, 34-yard gain, boom. Those are two great plays. Obviously, he made some great throws on some of the balls that were dropped, but then he didn't see defenders. I mean, there was a near interception on that ball over on the far side from the press box where the cornerback kind of floated into coverage and Trey Lance didn't pick him up. And then there was a miss to, I believe, Charlie Werner again over the middle of the field and another near interception later on. And Kyle Shanahan had a quote today that said, I'm going to paraphrase him because this is not going to be the exact quote. I don't have it up in front of me. But he said that, right now Trey's at the point where he's winning the game or keeping both teams in the game. He's so talented that obviously he could keep our team in the game, but Kyle Shanahan was talking about those two near interceptions, maybe the sack where Trey Lance wasn't able to get rid of the ball. He's also keeping the other team in the game. And that's what we mean by situational football. And then when we look at the big picture of what the 49ers have going on here, that's why they value Jimmy Garoppolo so much. That's why they've carved out room to keep him on this roster as far as the salary cap goes in the 2021 season, because when healthy, Jimmy Garoppolo has been a good quarterback situationally, right? He doesn't have the electric seismic arm talent that Trey Lance has. Nobody is arguing that. He doesn't have the running ability that Trey Lance has. But what Jimmy Garoppolo has is a track record that shows that he helmed the number 7 ranked pass offense efficiency-wise in the 2019 season when he was healthy. So it's obvious the 49ers are doing stuff right as far as moving the chains on third down, not getting behind the sticks, not committing procedural penalties, and they're converting accurately, when the down and distance calls for certain gains. Typically, when Jimmy Garoppolo has been healthy, the 49ers have been more efficient than not in attaining those gains to stay ahead of schedule. And staying ahead of schedule or on schedule with this offense and this 49ers offensive line, which is so geared toward run blocking, is extremely important. Because if you're in 2nd and 4, which is obviously a great down and distance, you have the threat of play action at your disposal, right? Because the defense is not sure if you're going to run or you're going to pass. Because of that, the defensive linemen can't pin their ears back and just go crazy after the quarterback. And that means that you're going to be blocking up front on your terms. So if you have guys that are better at run blocking than pass blocking, they're going to excel in a play action situation on 2nd and 4. Whereas if the quarterback can't get you that first 6 yards, if you're throwing on first down, and if it's, if they're constantly issues and it's boom or bust, but you find yourself in a 2nd and 10 or a 2nd and 9 way more than often, then the defensive linemen can start pinning their ears back. That's when an offensive line like the 49ers, which is built for that run game, and it might be heavier this year, it might be better and anchor down pass protection, but it's in those situations where you start to fall behind schedules. That's why Kyle Shanahan values efficiency out of the quarterback position so much, and that's why the goal is to get Trey Lance to the level where he can down in and down out be the guy that efficiently leads the 49ers offense through that set of procedures in a game. With how the 49ers have it right now, they see Trey Lance as a guy that's going to give you a big firework maybe once every 10 plays, once every 15 plays. I don't know how often it's going to be. And he does a lot of the smaller situational stuff well. He's gotten a lot better even since OTAs, but he still has lapses. We saw at least two lapses yesterday if you count the sack then 3 lapses. There was the inaccurate pass to Charlie Warner over the middle. Of course, every quarterback is going to make mistakes over the course of the game. There's never going to be a perfect game with 35 to 40 throws. The closest I ever saw to perfection was at the college level. Andrew Luck in the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma State. This was in January of 2012. It was something like 28 of 31 with the 3 throws being throwaways. And I think there was 1 tipped interception. So 2 throwaways and 1 tipped interception. You talk to the Stanford football coaching staff, they'll tell you that Andrew didn't make any mistakes in that game. Everything was perfect. Well, that was at the college level. This is the NFL. You'd be hard-pressed to find an absolutely perfect game in the NFL. So, of course, there are going to be blemishes. The point is that you have to find these and reduce these blemishes to the point where the coach, and this is Kyle Shanahan in this instance, is going to consider that they're not prevalent enough to disrupt the team situationally, and he believes that Trey Lance is the most efficient option as far as moving the chains along for the football team in a game. And Kyle Shanahan's not there yet. Kyle Shanahan loves the physical talent, and he is salivating. Kyle Shanahan was drawing up plays for Trey Lance when he was flying back from Justin Fields' pro day. What does that tell us? That means that Kyle Shanahan wanted to use Trey Lance's immense talent immediately in this 2021 season after he picked him. So in the private jet back from Columbus, Ohio, Kyle Shanahan is drawing up plays for Trey Lance, which I guarantee you we're going to see in this 2021 season. But drawing up individual plays is very different than having a quarterback in there, down in, down out, operating within the parameters of situational football, making sure that it's 2nd and 4 instead of 2nd and 9, handling all the different blitzes, playing essentially defenses on their terms. When Trey Lance enters games in this 2021 season, the 49ers and Shanahan will be able to ensure that they have the defense on its heels, and they'll be able to use Trey Lance to attack on the 49ers and on Trey Lance's terms. And I think that's why this is going to be so fascinating, because if Shanahan uses Garoppolo as his baseline quarterback, as his guy to efficiently move the chains of the offense, he can progressively integrate Trey Lance into the mix further and further as he gets more comfortable and use him in more and more situations. But he'll start with the ones where, for example, he'll have maximum leverage. He could start with a 2nd and 3. It's a great leverage down, right? Where he's already installed a ton of read option stuff. The defense won't be sure if Trey's going to run a read option, he's going to hand off, or this is what makes it way different than Taysom Hill, or if he's going to run some kind of completely pro-style play and fire a dart downfield, because Trey Lance can throw. So you could start with Lance in the advantage. Well, he has leverage in an arm wrestling match against the defense. And then as he gets more and more comfortable, as he starts ironing out some of the issues that we've seen over the course of training camp and in the preseason game against Kansas City, all of a sudden it's going to be a thing of beauty. Because then Kyle Shanahan is going to be able to turn to him more and more. And I think the ultimate goal, right, is to have Lance able to have the controls 100% at his disposal in fully efficient situational manner by 2022. I think, just reading the tea leaves, I think that's the 49ers timetable for this. But they're leaving their options open for anything to happen. Speaking of that, we only saw Garoppolo for a little bit yesterday. The drive got killed by the Charlie Warner offensive pass interference, but he looked efficient. With only one drive, it's really hard to tell. You can't really set the defense up for anything, so we don't know what he would have done. But again, both of these quarterbacks have done good stuff in practice. Lance is physically superior. Lance will make more wild plays. Garoppolo's been better at the nuts and bolts, the short game, the situational stuff that wins you not only games but championships. So why not take both of those things, meld them together, and then hope that Trey Lance, by osmosis, soaks up what Jimmy Garoppolo has, because Jimmy Garoppolo's not going to be able to soak up what Trey Lance has. Jimmy Garoppolo's never going to be able to run like Trey Lance. He's never going to be able to throw a 49-yard seed like Trey Lance. But those are just physical realities. But the osmosis can happen the other way. I can tell you what, these guys seem to be great teammates, and they seem to be very happy for each other. So I think the 49ers are pleased with what they have in their quarterback room after that game, and there is no reason to be a prisoner of the moment. Absolutely no reason to be a prisoner of the moment. You can appreciate Trey Lance's throw and also appreciate the fact that there was a whole lot to work on in that game. And that's what we're going to move on to this week against the Chargers. 49ers, Chargers, 2 open practices for the media and for fans, but obviously not for cameras during team drills. And since the 49ers and the Chargers don't play each other this year, that means that you can start seeing exotic blitzes. You can start seeing exotic coverages. These 2 teams have agreed to practice with each other so that they could challenge each other in that way. And the only way that that would ever come back to somehow potentially hurt them strategically is if they met in the Super Bowl. But I think the Chargers and the 49ers would both be okay with that being a result. So they'd cross that bridge when they get to it. New Chargers coach is Brandon Staley. Used to be the defensive coordinator of the Rams. He coordinated a great Rams defense last year. The Rams do some stuff on defense, and Shanahan outfoxed Brandon Staley in the past, right? Shanahan has owned the Rams recently. So it's going to be another interesting chess match. I'll tell you what, the practices on Thursday and Friday are going to be a lot more exciting than the game on Sunday, because once the game happens, the cameras are back on, the rest of the NFL can watch this. And obviously, I think you can expect people to, the coaches for both teams to start holding stuff closer to the vest. So let me answer some questions. I think the questions will naturally get us to a roster discussion. And we could talk about some of the guys that impressed and some of the guys that are dropping after that first game. Oh, God, there's so many of these right here. This is great. Will you be in LA for the practices and the game? Absolutely. I'm going to be in LA for the practices and the game. We have 2 more here in Santa Clara. So I am going to be out at the facility tomorrow, Monday, then again on Tuesday. Then I'm heading down to Orange County. It's not LA. It's going to be in Orange County. It's in Costa Mesa for Thursday, Friday, Saturday off. So if you're in the Newport area, let me know. And then I'll be in Inglewood at SoFi Stadium on Saturday. If I were with Kyle, what would I work on with Lance this week? I think the 49ers just need to stay the course, and that's exactly what Kyle Shanahan is doing. He's not trying to make this something that it isn't, something that Twitter is demanding. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Trey Lance makes 1 pass, and everybody says name him the starter. Based on what? 1 pass after your starter went 3 for 3, and then Trey, finishes 1 for 7 or whatever it was. It's unfair to Trey Lance. I mean, this is a kid who last played a full season in 2019. He's unbelievably talented. The 49ers are counting on him to be the future. And obviously, he's still making the mistakes that you would expect him to make in a game. So why put the kind of pressure? Like, it's completely irrational and illogical to crown him and to task him, to saddle him with this kind of stuff based on 1 pass in a game before seeing the full body of work. So that's Kyle Shanahan is approaching it exactly the way that I'm talking right now. So, I mean, don't shoot the messenger. There are a lot of people that want to do that. But, guys, I am trying to do my best job reporting this. I've reported the quarterback situation accurately all year right here for the 49ers. And by that, I mean, I'm conveying what Kyle Shanahan is thinking at the time. Now, if Trey Lance just surges in situational execution in a way that nobody with the 49ers anticipates him to this week, if all of a sudden he's a perfect 20 of 23 kind of guy that is always making the right read, never taking a sack, never endangering an interception. If he can do that in a game situation by next Sunday, by all means, Kyle Shanahan will start Trey Lance, and he'll probably trade Jimmy Garoppolo. The problem is that that's, not the realistic trajectory right now. And it puts way unnecessary pressure on Trey Lance to expect that to be the trajectory, right? So if you're Kyle Shanahan, you work with Lance on what you've been working on, improving that situational football, doing situational drills, working on the arm mechanics to make sure some of those throws over the middle don't sail. Make sure he sees some of those underneath linebackers. Make sure he sees some of those drop-in cornerbacks that almost got him in the game this past Saturday. So all of those things you work on. I think that you probably work on some of that read option stuff against the Chargers because, some of that's, especially the practices, that film is not going to get out to the rest of the league. People can't have cameras at those practices. So you work on getting Trey Lance's feet wet. They're still in very general get his feet wet mode right now. But you also have to work on the specific stuff that you're going to use Trey Lance for in the 2021 season so that he can help win you football games immediately. And that's going to be some of the quarterback running stuff. And I'm not saying run Trey Lance like a glorified back. I'm talking about the threat of the run. If Trey Lance presents the threat of taking off on a read option, that requires commitment from the defense. Commitment for the defense means that either the running back lane is going to be bigger or something in the pass game, an opportunity to throw is going to be bigger for Trey Lance. This is option power on the field. We talk about option power financially for the 49ers, draft-wise for the 49ers. Well, this is option power on the field. That's what Trey Lance gives you. It was an offseason of attaining option power for the 49ers, and now as you develop Trey Lance and work on certain things with him, you work on implementing that in a game. I agree. He's going to wear down defenses a lot. So this is crazy. You say that Sermon is not a speed running back, but he had one of the fastest bursts out of all the running backs last year. So I would offer that Trey Sermon in his 10-yard burst means that he can hit holes fast. He just doesn't have the fastest 40s. He's not going to run away from defenses. He is very physical, and he is a violent runner. Kyle was only upset with the fumble yesterday, but I thought Trey Sermon showed some good vision on runs over to the edges. It was a good little start. Why don't we take a look at the roster? I think the roster is a good thing to take a quick look at right now. You have a situation here. Maybe I should zoom in on this, right? I'm sure you guys have some questions. I'm going to kind of go over the latest news. Can everybody see that? I hope so. If not, just go to the link, which I put on Twitter. But if you look through this, I have color-coded guys who I believe are dropping right now, who I believe are in a situation where the stock is not rising for sure. And that is red. And the guys that I have color-coded in green are players not on the 53-man projection, which is on the right side of the line as of now, but players who I think have rising stock and have a chance to ultimately make that 53-man roster based on the performances of the game yesterday. So, right here, Richie James, too many drops. I don't know about Richie James right now. If he's not giving you what you need in the return game, plus value in the return game, it's really hard to justify carrying Richie James on the 53-man roster because of his drops. Because of that, Simba Webster, Rams waived him, great returner. The thing that really, really impressed me from Simba Webster is the kick return late in the game, 43-yard kick return. Normally when a guy has that big of a return, he'll yank himself out of the game for at least a play to get a breather. No, Simba Webster stayed in the game, ripped off a 25-yard run. It was him and Hasty that got the 49ers to score that touchdown late. That is the type of stuff that gets you into the thick of the mix, right? And I think that, when we go to this sheet between Simba Webster and Richie James, Simba Webster is the rising stock and Richie James is the falling stock. Unfortunately, Austin Watkins Jr. over here broke his foot, played on a broken foot. Sounds really tough to me, but he'll be out for 6 to 8 weeks. I think he was destined for the practice squad anyway. And Austin Watkins Jr. is the kind of guy that could really probably benefit just like Juwan Jennings did last year from a redshirt season anyway. So he shouldn't put his head down too far because you saw the talk around Juwan Jennings today. Kyle Shanahan essentially confirmed that Juwan Jennings will be on the team today. Kyle Shanahan talked about how thrilled he was with how well Juwan blocked. I mean, this is a guy with a bulldog mentality. He's a fighter. I mean, go back and watch Juwan Jennings' Tennessee film. The guy's a total dog, and in a good way, obviously. He is after it on every single play. That was the case yesterday, and I think the 49ers have basically decided that Juwan Jennings is making this team, as long as he keeps up the effort that we saw against the Chiefs the other night. The big question in the receiver room remains Jalen Hurd, and we'll see if he even plays here, and he's going to need a play to carve out a roster spot. This is great, Ramon. I see Webster as a Tavon Austin gadget type who can return the ball. Absolutely. If you have size in the receiver room, right? If you have the requisite size, and I think the 49ers will with Juwan Jennings, they will, with Mohamed Sanu. They potentially will. Jalen Hurd makes the team. So, if you have the requisite size there, you can afford to use one of those receiver slots on more of a gadget type player, especially if he can deliver in special teams. That's how I see Simba Webster. Another guy, let's move down to the tight ends right here. Another guy who I thought really, really improved his chances of making the team yesterday was Jordan Matthews, the former receiver who's now a tight end. Jordan Matthews on Jermichael Hasty's touchdown had a beautiful little cut block. I shouldn't say chop block because that's a penalty. He had a beautiful cut block near the goal line. I mean, for a guy who's a wideout who is in a situation where he's just learning how to block in close quarters like that, that's tough. You know, that's what John Embry, the 49ers tight ends coach, has been working with Jordan Matthews on. And I thought the fact that he spearheaded a touchdown late in the game was extremely impressive and extremely important. Now, obviously, Jordan Matthews made a catch. And for a tight end, especially a guy who might have linebackers on him from time to time or even safeties, the fact that he has good receiver background, good wideout background, I think that means he could potentially be a playmaker. Now, Michael Pruitt, who's right here on the spreadsheet, Michael Pruitt is probably going to be back at practice on Monday after dealing with a calf injury. So is there room in this tight end group? Maybe not. That's the problem for Jordan Matthews right now. But as we've seen, a lot can still happen between now and cut down day to 53 men in 2 weeks. Early this week, the 49ers have to cut from 90 to 85. So you're going to see some of the guys on the very right of this sheet get cut. And then next week will be 85 to 80. So a few more will get cut. And then the 53, that's only the yellow side over here. So if Jordan Matthews has an opening, if Pruitt gets hurt again or something else happens, that's, I think, when Jordan Matthews can really make a move. But I think he's positioning himself very well right now. All right, now we got to talk about some of the worst news for the 49ers. Aaron Banks did not look good, and then he got hurt. Aaron Banks gave up 4 pressures, according to PFF. I'm going to turn off this question here. So yes, Aaron Banks, 4 pressures, didn't look good. Looked slow in pass protection. He pancaked a couple guys in the run game. We knew that Aaron Banks was big and strong. That's great, but the 49ers need better pass protection from that right guard spot. We saw Brunskill get beaten by Chris Jones first series. No shame in losing to Chris Jones, of course, but then pressure after pressure started coming against Aaron Banks, and then he hurt his shoulder. He's going to be out maybe 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. He's going to lose valuable reps because this is a second-round pick the 49ers are counting on to make an impact sooner rather than later, preferably a starting impact. And unfortunately, you're not going to see Aaron Banks starting or contributing in week 1 if he can't practice for the next 3 weeks. So all of a sudden, the 49ers offensive line is in this position right now that's tenuous to me. It's very, very tenuous to me because you look at the starters. You have Trent Williams, Laken Tomlinson, Alex Mack, Daniel Brunskill, Mike McGlinchey. I love Daniel Brunskill. I think Daniel Brunskill is a good football player. I think he's a great utility lineman in that you could plug him in anywhere. That kept that 2019 49ers team afloat on its way to the Super Bowl. But I think the reason they drafted Aaron Banks was to ultimately take that right guard spot, right? So that way Daniel Brunskill could be the quality depth that the team needs. Well, as it stands right now with Banks highlighted in brown because he's hurt, the 49ers are going to have to figure something else out. That means Daniel Brunskill is almost certainly your week 1 starter at right guard, and you're going to have to find other depth pieces. Jalen Moore started the game, the rookie 5th-round pick, at left tackle, and I thought he played well, especially all things considered. 5th-rounder being thrust into the mix at left tackle. He gave up a sack, maybe gave up 2 pressures, I think, on the game. But Jalen Moore looks like he belongs, which is big, and I think he might be your swing tackle with adaptability to move down the guard. What I was really intrigued by against the Chiefs was the play of Colton McKivitz. McKivitz wasn't good in 2020, but he also is a rookie who played without OTAs and without the preseason. He got beat bad in New Orleans on the inside. 49ers weren't sure if they wanted him to be a tackle or a guard. I think now they're looking at Colton McKivitz as interior depth, which is going to be really important with Aaron Banks now hurt. And he only gave up 1 pressure yesterday, and he was great in the run game, and he was, I thought, really good pass protecting when the 49ers were playing on their terms through play action. So I think that the rise of Colton McKivitz, the potential rise, I guess I should say, I think we've seen a little bit of the rise, but the potential completion of that rise is absolutely imperative for the 49ers to succeed this season. Because you need more than 5 quality offensive linemen, especially when one of your linemen is going to turn 37 this year. That's Alex Mack at the center position. You need quality depth at that position. I really, really do believe that 8 quality linemen, maybe 7, you can get away with 7, are necessary to make a Super Bowl run. That means that by the end of the season, by the time this is all said and done, Aaron Banks is going to need to develop into something usable. I mean, obviously, it's been a disappointing start for him, but it's too early to fully write him off. He's going to have to develop into a contributor. That means that Colton McKivitz is going to have to develop into a contributor, and we saw a good step toward that yesterday. And then Jalen Moore is going to have to develop into a contributor, and I think we also saw a good step toward that yesterday. So the Banks news is disappointing. The Banks play was disappointing, but it's early still. We shouldn't write him off. And in my opinion, there was good news amongst the 49ers offensive linemen with McKivitz and Moore. And then also Jake Brendel, the center over here, backup center. I thought that he played well too. He started with the first team for the 49ers in place of Alex Mack. So don't just limit it to these 8 guys that I'm highlighting over here. Keep your eyes out for Brendel. Tom Compton's a veteran who's played with Shanahan before. He might be somebody that the 49ers can carry on the practice squad or bring up in a pinch if people get hurt. But it's, there's some upward mobility with Brendel, and you have to be excited with what Moore and McKivitz did in the game on Saturday. Let's see if there's any more questions right here. I think Shepley's probably still a year away. I mean, Shepley came from the CFL. They really like Shepley, but I think he'll be a practice squad guy for this season. People want to trade for offensive line help. Yeah, I mean, McKivitz, he played right guard yesterday, so potentially, if you think but I think the 49ers Brunskill is a better option. They're going to go with their best options to start. You have to beat out Brunskill to get right guard. It's not worth it just to push Brunskill into a utility line role just for the hell of it, right? Just because you want him in a utility role. You only push him there if a guy beats him out. So as of right now, I don't think McKivitz is beating out Brunskill at right guard. Remember, Brunskill got beaten by Chris Jones yesterday. Aaron Banks was, and McKivitz are getting beaten by other guys who weren't Chris Jones. On defense, it's really hard. I'm going to finish this up with the defense, so let's make this big again. It's going to be really hard to make great evaluations because almost none of the starters played. So out of all these defensive linemen, you had, I thought Arden Key played some really good football. Arden Key, if you put on the film, is just hustling, chasing guys down from the backside, pressuring the quarterback. I know he's working against backup tackles, but I think that Chris Kasarik is unlocking some real desire from Arden Key. Guess what? 49ers play the Raiders week 3 dress rehearsal game. Arden Key, if healthy, is making his football team. I'm sure of that. And he gets to play the Raiders, the team that he was just talking some shit about the other day. So that's going to be fun. We'll see if Arden Key is able to get a revenge sack for the team that waived him. But Arden Key, out of all the defensive linemen, probably impressed me the most for the 49ers yesterday. Guys on the right side over here did some work. I mean, Jordan Willis impressed me too. That's another thing. This team probably has 12 capable defensive linemen. 49ers could probably only take 10 on the 53-man roster, 11 if we really push it. So the fact that Jordan Willis is suspended for the first 6 games, which is why he shaded there in that tan color, might be a blessing in disguise for the 49ers. Not for Jordan Willis because he doesn't get paid for those 6 games. But for the 49ers, guys might get hurt over the first 6 games. Stuff could happen. All of a sudden, Jordan Willis can come in firing as a reinforcement in week 7. And he's one of the 12 defensive linemen that's very capable of playing. Kentavious Street right here, who I also think has rising stock right now. He's the 11th, and I think he's really, threatening to play. Maybe, something's going to happen in the next 2 weeks that really clears up this situation. Unfortunately, this is how it works in football. So I'd keep a close eye on this. But even Eddie Vanderdoes had a sack. I just don't think that there's room for him to stick around. Eddie Yarborough looked good. So it's a situation where 49ers have a lot of good defensive linemen, and I'll tell you what, it's a good problem to have. It is not a bad problem to have. Moving on to the linebacker room. Yesterday, we saw a little bit of Dre Greenlaw. I liked what we saw from Marcel Harris. He's still adapting to the new position, but he made one nice stop ahead of the first down marker. I really do think that Marcel Harris is going to make the football team. I think the 49ers made that position switch with, Marcel Harris on that 53-man roster in mind. The really interesting one is Jonas Griffith. He was everywhere yesterday. And again, I'm sorry if this is too small, but Jonas Griffith was awesome yesterday. Flying around the field. He's very fast. He's tall. Another one of those tall linebackers that the 49ers like. And Will he be a practice squad guy? That's probably the likely destination, but he's on everybody's radar now. I mean, he's impressing me more than these other backup linebackers that the 49ers have. So, Jonas Griffith wants to become the next Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, the next Fred Warner. Everybody wants to become the next Fred Warner, but probably still a lot of work instinctually for Jonas Griffith to be able to do what he's doing right now against first team offenses. But boy, he popped yesterday, and the 49ers also signed Michael Kendricks, who had several good years in Philadelphia. So they have depth at the position. It's going to be really interesting to see how that pans out. Again, a lot can still happen over the next 2 weeks. We get to see these guys take on Herbert and the Chargers next. So there's going to be moving pieces. There will be cuts. I mean, we're going down to 85, then to 80. So it's too early to make any grand proclamations. Although one grand proclamation that I will make, I'll make an exception to my own rule. I'll break it right away, is Talanoa Hufanga. This guy's going to be a good football player that 49ers fans really like. I still have him at second string at strong safety because you got to earn the starting position. It's not given to you. And maybe the 49ers don't want to start him right away, but I don't care. Hufanga excelled on special teams. Talanoa Hufanga flew around on defense. I mean, the concern about this guy, who was a safety out of USC, was when he came out of college, everybody was worried that he wasn't fast enough. Everybody was talking about, 4.6 speed. That's not that 4.4, 4.3 speed that we see out of safeties in NFL, or at least 4.5 speed, right? There was real concern. And on tape, too, I'll have to say, I thought Talanoa was very instinctual. I compared him to Fred Warner instinctually, but, the problem was that, Fred Warner's a linebacker, right? So when I saw a safety, Talanoa is way smaller than Fred Warner. I was worried that, oh boy, at the NFL level, if I'm comparing him to Fred Warner, he might have to play linebacker, not safety. And that means he's going to have to put on weight. And I just thought that maybe the only way that he would be a true impact guy would be as a hybridized kind of linebacker. And the 49ers were even talking about that around the draft. But what we have seen from Talanoa Hufanga is, both in practice and in this preseason game, is an ability to play the safety position at the NFL level with requisite speed. The guy has a first step. The guy knows the defense. The guy already knows opposing NFL offenses. I mean, he has that anticipation that's necessary to make 4.6 look fast. You can have a 4.3 guy that doesn't know what the hell is going on, and he might as well be a 4.7 guy. You can have a 4.7 guy that knows everything that's going on, has great anticipation. He might as well be a 4.3 guy. So far, Hufanga's playing more like a 4.4, 4.5 guy. And that's only going to get faster. It should only get faster as he becomes more comfortable in the league. He had a couple great stops, tracking players in the open field yesterday ahead of the first down marker. And then B, he contributed on special teams. I mean, if there was a player that I was most impressed with coming out of that football game, it was Talanoa Hufanga. And, maybe the 49ers have found more magic in that fifth round. Speaking of the fifth round, the 49ers also drafted their cornerback, Deommodore Lenoir there. He had an interception yesterday, and Ambry Thomas played yesterday. I didn't think either of those two guys were great. I thought they were good. They're not liabilities against the opposing second-string offense. It's an important hurdle to cross, right? You don't want to enter Brian Allen territory with your cornerback. So I think that Lenoir and Thomas are progressing nicely, but they still have a ways to go, and it's going to be exciting to see Verrett and Mosley, who are the undisputed 1s and 2s. I mean, I thought, maybe Ambry Thomas coming in might be able to push Emmanuel Mosley. This was before camp, and that was a mistake on my part. It's not going to happen. Ambry Thomas, might contribute a little bit for the 49ers down the road this year, but if things go as planned, the 49ers want Verrett, they want Mosley, they want K'Wan Williams back there. Those are their three best cornerbacks, bar none. And we'll see if Lenoir and Thomas, those guys are the future, right? Those guys are using this year to develop. I think I went over all the risers and fallers there, so that's good. Yeah, so we'll see what happens next week. Special teams-wise, God, the 49ers got to be better. I don't think that Wisnowski was particularly good yesterday. Obviously, Gold missed the extra point, and I think there was a low snap from Tabor Pepper on one of the punts. So 49ers have to get better on special teams. Simba Webster is part of the hope there, I think, for the 49ers. They need a better return game. Simba yesterday had the big 40th-year return ahead of his own end-around run. That's big. I think in a scenario that Simba Webster makes the team, Brandon Ayuk should be the 49ers punt returner. I think that would make a lot of people happy. But they were bad in special teams last year. It wasn't a great start yesterday. But again, over 20 guys didn't play this game. So We need to cool our jets. Remember what I said about Trey Lance earlier. Let's not be prisoners of the moment. Let's see what the 49ers are doing in the big picture, because that's going to make us smart. That's going to make us understand that this is a fluid plan that Kyle Shanahan's working with, that Trey Lance is impressed, the team is impressed, but there's still a lot of holes to plug. And they're going to plug them this week, or they're going to try to when they do those joint practices against the Chargers. Anyway, I'll try to talk to you guys after practice tomorrow. Does that sound good? Follow on YouTube. Follow, you might be watching on Twitter, so make sure you follow on YouTube and follow on Twitter if you're watching on YouTube. We kind of got that crossover going. Time for me to go get some food. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed week 1.